Hi all. I thought I'd show you the draw that I mentioned in Gibraltar in the last Kotov series video. So basically, Akobian, I've become quite friendly with him. I'd bumped into him at the airport on the way there, and also on the way back. I was chatting to him quite a bit. On the way there, by the way, I asked him, about Nxe5, what's the impact of Nxe5 and things like that. And he says all that stuff becomes automatic, and it really, it all depends on the position. So he had a very, very concrete, view of chess. There isn't any golden bullets, like imbalances or Nxe5 is my system or anything. He just said it all depends on the position. And at the end of the tournament, he mentioned, that he had made a very good opening repertoire with the help of another GM in preparation for the tournament, so he was very pleased. So GMs obviously put a lot of emphasis nowadays in opening theory and analysis of games and Ribka analysis. So things have changed since the 1970s. Kotov's Think Like a Grandmaster, and the new game in town is GMs can compare their moves to Ribka. And sometimes, they take pride if their moves match Ribka's first choice. And after this particular game, which was awarded the Brilliancy prize, even though it was a draw, it was the Gibraltar gave it this Brilliancy prize. And Akobian said his first moves matched Ribka, and so did his opponents. And he said it was very rare to have such a game. So let's have a look. So Akobian was white against Stephen Gordon, who's an up-and-coming British player, 2-5-2-4. And at Gibraltar, Stephen Gordon did quite well, but against Akobian as black, so he played kind of as though he's going to play the Nimzo Indian. He played E6 here, and after knight F3 D5, so it's kind of solid, classical from black, nothing fancy. After knight C3 Bishop E7, so is this going to be a dull game, you might wonder? Well, Akobian, he played Bishop G5. And after H6, he doesn't want to give up his dark squared bishop. He just retreated the bishop to H4. So he's keeping a bit of tension in the position. And after castles, Akobian played E3. And now Stephen Gordon, he played B6, which I think is the Tartakower variation. So black's fianchettoing the queen's bishop. After bishop E2, bishop B7. And it's now that once that bishop has been committed on B7, that Varuzhan, he takes on F6 now and takes on D5. So maybe one of the points is that the bishop's going to be slightly, blocked in by this pawn on D5. And usually, black's going to accept hanging pawns by playing C5 later. But Varuzhan puts an immediate stop to the idea of C5 by playing B4 now. So he's trying to discourage C5 from black. So black actually plays C6 instead. So this also, I guess, stops white from playing B5, making it more uncomfortable to later play either C5 or C6. So C6 by black, and now castles, and now black played A5. And Varuzhan here, he didn't want to leave his pawn on B4. He just took on A5, which gives black, according to Ribka, a slight advantage here after rook takes A5. So I'm not sure actually now about this claim of Ribka first choice. Ribka thinks here on depth 13, and this is his opening book theory, and Varuzhan was saying, apart from the opening theory, it was Ribka first choice. I guess that must be it, because Ribka actually gives B5 here with a slight advantage to white. So anyway, he took on at A5, and it gives black this, perhaps a clearer plan to at least attack on the A file to put some pressure on that A pawn. So now bishop C8. So the bishop finds that nice diagonal. And also, the reshuffling black does is quite sweet now, I thought. So bishop E6. And if the knight can come away, then the queen could actually go to A8 to put pressure on that A4 pawn. And we'll see that now. Knight D7. And now the queen goes to A8. So it seems a strange place to put the queen. And one downside is, in principle, is black's king going to be as safe if the queen's stuck over there trying to attack this A4 pawn, which at the moment seems just humbly supported enough just by that knight on C3. So white anyway played bishop d3, so he's lining up the troops, as Quillen would say, and after rook c8 he now plays h3, so he's tempting black perhaps to play c5. I'm not sure c5 is that good here, but Rivka's giving it as the first choice, c5. That wasn't what was played though, so c5 was as though it's an advantage to black, so rook dc1, and there's various moves here. But in the game actually instead of c5, bishop e7 was played. So maybe black's plan now is bishop b4, takes c3 and then takes a4. Seems quite logical. And Varuzhan simply played bishop f5. Sorry, I'm assuming the rook's not on b1 of course, otherwise it loses a piece. So black now played b5, and some more pressure is being exerted now on the white queen side, and white doesn't really want his queen in the target of the rook on c8. He takes on e6, and now he plays actually knight e5. So I still actually can't see the Rivka first choice all the way, because Rivka's first choice here is a mixture of knight e2 or queen g6. Oh, knight e5 is the third. Oh, it's been moved to the first candidate now. So maybe here at move 22, I'll start paying more attention to this. Is this Rivka's first choice? Knight e5. It is on depth 11. So black takes, and now b4. So white goes to e2, and now the strongest move apparently for black is c5, which is what is played. So let's have a look. Say rook takes a4. What would be wrong with rook takes a4? If rook takes a4, apparently queen g6 is strong for white. So it's attacking that e6. There's also ideas maybe of knight f4 to h5. So say queen b7. This isn't that great. So knight f4 here, it's quite dangerous. Eyeing that g6 square. So white's slightly better here. So black actually played the move c5. So I guess the idea of c5 is to be able to laterally protect e6 if necessary against queen g6. So white played queen g6 anyway, and now this lateral protection with rook a6. And now white exerted more pressure, knight f4. So black defended with rook c to c6, and now, yes, Rivka's first choice move is what was played, which reminds me of the disruptive move that Fischer played in the 1972 World Championship match. This e4 is trying to disrupt black's pawn structure. After queen f, actually here, so there's a few choices, and the move played was d4. I'll just let Rivka have a look at this now. Depth 14 is giving queen f8 or d4. Now it's switched to d4. That's interesting. Depth 15, d4. So Rivka is finding this more accurate than queen f8. So maybe there is some truth to this, that this game, from a certain point, about move 20, after the opening, was Rivka first choice by both players, to a certain extent, at a certain depth. d4. So now, again, was the accurate move here played for white to try and continue this attack? So this is one of those queenside attacks versus kingside attack scenarios. And white needs to get more artillery to the black king. So the artillery here is waiting. It can be switched either with rook b3 or rook d3. So which one is white going to use? Well, actually at depth 16, rook b3 is the recommended one to use, with rook d3 coming second. So I'm not sure about this being the top choice now, rook d3. It was what was played. It seems like a logical move. So with the idea of rook g3 and all sorts of threats, so knight h5, queen h6, if the rook can come there, it starts to look a bit dangerous for black. So black was quite calm. He defended now with his queen by playing queen f8. And now we see the move rook g3. So obviously the queen's tied down to defend g7, so he can't take that knight on f4. Black, though, disrupts the g-file by playing Rivka's first choice here, which is bishop g5. And now White has a few sharp tactical choices, sharp forcing moves as well. So is it going to be Rook takes G5 as an exchange sack, or is it going to be Knight H5, or something else? There aren't that many choices. Rivka at the moment is giving Knight H5 as equal. So what Akobian did was actually sacrifice the exchange, which is the second favourite move of Rivka, just sacking the exchange here. So what has he got for the exchange sack? And isn't he just facing this Space Invader type pawns coming down the board, queening? So there's a time limit to his attack. So this is analogous to a Kotov example we've recently had a look at. So how can White generate sufficient counterplay on the king side to counterbalance Black's queen side counterplay, where he plays Knight G6, attacking the queen immediately,